According to the U.S. Federal Reserve, nearly half of Americans aged 55 to 64 have absolutely nothing saved for retirement. Yes. Zero. If you've bought into the myth that all baby boomers are living large on a beach somewhere, today's numbers will shock you. And you might be surprised how close you or your family could be to the same fate. If you're 35 to 52, what you do in the next 5 years could make or break your future. But here's the good news. There's a clear, data-backed framework to help you avoid the very mistakes that have left so many boomers scrambling. And if you're watching for a parent or loved one, I'll break down the top 3 moves they can make right now, even if they're already over 55. Stick with me as we bust generational myths, reveal the hidden financial traps, and lay out actionable steps. So in 20 years, your story is very, very different. Let's get right into it. The idea that every baby boomer retires rich is wildly overstated. According to the 2023 Federal Reserve Report, the median baby boomer isn't sailing around the world collecting passive income. In fact, about half of Americans between 55 and 64 have nothing set aside for retirement. Literally, $0 in their retirement accounts. Source: U.S. Federal Reserve, 2023. So why do younger people imagine boomers have it? Made simple. Headlines talk about the trillions in boomer wealth, but those big numbers hide the fact that, just like any other generation, most struggle. While only a small slice ever reaches the top, here's something most people overlook. Wealth naturally accumulates with age simply because assets and investments have time to grow, but that doesn't mean every older adult is set for life. In reality, only a minority are. If you're under 55, it's tempting to think, well, that won't happen to me. But slow down, because the road that led boomers to a retirement crisis is still open for anyone who isn't careful today. First, let's rewind. Did you know the concept of retirement is less than 100 years old? Before 1935, people worked as long as they physically could, and then depended on family or the local community to survive. Retirement as we know it, a period where you live off your assets without working, was a fantasy until the Social Security Act was signed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. That pivotal moment meant average Americans, for the first time, could step away from work and still receive a government check. Think about that. Prior to 1935, retirement didn't exist for ordinary workers. This is a crucial turning point. Source: Social Security Administration s.gov. Social Security laid a foundation, and so did traditional pensions. Those now rare employer retirement promises. Baby boomers' parents became the first generation to experience retirement, backed by both Social Security and often guaranteed lifetime income from pensions. Back then, the plan was simple. Work one job most of your adult life, pay into Social Security, collect your pension, and live comfortably until the end. That dream has nearly vanished. Less than a century since Social Security's debut, we're already facing its potential collapse. By 2033, government forecasts show Social Security will be able to pay only about 80% of promised benefits unless changes are made. Source: Social Security Administration Trustees Report, 2023. Question for you. Did you expect the Social Security crisis would hit so soon? Comment below if you or your parents are worried about it. Let's break the boomers are wealthy myth together. But it gets tougher. Pensions, the bedrock of mid-century retirement, started crumbling as far back as the early 1960s. Why? Quite simply, companies realized that promising to pay every retiree a guaranteed income for life became unaffordable, especially as life expectancy climbed. Need proof. In 1963, Studebaker's pension plan failed spectacularly, leaving workers with nothing and serving as a national wake-up call about the risks of relying solely on a company pension. Even new laws designed to protect pensions just made them more expensive for companies to maintain, so employers started searching for exits. Everything shifted in 1978, when a little-known tax code change ushered in the 401k plan. While it was first created to help corporate executives defer part of their bonuses, it quickly became the default retirement system across America. Employers now loved this new world. No longer did they bear responsibility for your secure retirement. The onus shifted most entirely onto employees. Sure, many companies offer 401k matches, but those contributions can fall far short of providing a lifetime of income. The entire narrative sounds spun into, you control your financial destiny now. While that's empowering in theory and reality, if you don't save for yourself, you simply may not get to retire. Here's a quick check-in. Can you name exactly how much you'd need to have in a 401k by age 55 or 65 to actually retire? If you don't know, you're not alone. And we're about to cover a simple formula to help you estimate it later in this video. But there's something else you should know. Baby boomers didn't get a free ride their whole careers. Let's rewind again. If you started your career in the late 1960s or early 70s, you'd have faced one of the worst periods for investing in U.S. history. From 1966 to 1982, the stock market was essentially flat. When you adjust for inflation, investors lost money year after year, 16 years straight, and inflation ran rampant. Source: Robert Shiller. Irrational exuberance. S&P 500 historical returns. Let's pause and think about this. If you're entering the job market today, you may actually be facing a similar risk of stagnation after over a decade of rising asset prices. Imagine being told for years to save for retirement. But after investing, you watch your dollar's buying power shrink. For many boomers, that experience permanently colored their views on investing. Stocks seemed like a gamble, not a wealth-building strategy. Now, some people did push forward, and yes, many built enormous wealth through the market. But many more fell behind, either paralyzed by fear or burned by market downturns. Here's your next curiosity loop. What was the long-term impact for people who sat on the sidelines until markets recovered? We'll break down the cost of late investing in just a moment, and I'll walk you through a case study that you can use to benchmark your own plan. By the time the 1980s bull market returned and Americans gained a little confidence, many boomers had already lost their most valuable investing years. As you know, the longer your money compounds, the better. Missing a decade or two of investing can cut your retirement nest egg in half versus starting earlier. The 401k system now in place forced everyone into a DIY world with very little guidance. Most people had nobody breaking down how much to invest, how to allocate between stocks and bonds, what fees to watch for, or even how much to withdraw when the time came. There was no Reddit, no YouTube, no robo-advisors. Many made costly mistakes, like cashing out early, missing employer matches, or letting job changes trigger withdrawals. Each early withdrawal or missed year of compounding contributed to making comfortable retirement harder and harder. Let's quickly recap the historical context so far. 1. Social Security created the retirement era, but it's running out of steam. 2. Pensions faded, replaced by 401k plans, shifting all risk onto workers. 3. Economic cycles, like the stagflation of the 70s, taught an entire generation to mistrust the stock market. Now let's move to the more recent past. In the 1990s, stocks came roaring back. Tech stocks especially soared, and many skeptical boomers decided to rejoin the party, often late and often at precisely the wrong time. The result? The dot-com crash of 2000 hit. The Nasdaq alone lost nearly 80% its value, and millions saw retirement savings cut in half. Just as accounts began to recover, the 2008 global financial crisis hit, once again wrecking nest eggs for those on the cusp of retirement. Source: Nasdaq. Historical data. Federal Reserve. 2023. Let's do a quick market math break. If you had a $250,000 retirement account at age 50 in 1999, but portfolio cuts and withdrawals during and after the crashes resulted in only $130,000 left by your 60th birthday, you weren't just set back. You were forced to delay retirement or scale down your lifestyle. On top of that, the 2008 to 2012 period meant widespread layoffs, stagnant wages, and many boomers in their so-called peak earning years, mid-40s to early 60s, found themselves underemployed or pushed into jobs far below their experience level. Even those doing everything right faced financial setbacks they'd never dreamed of. Here's a quick engagement prompt before we continue. If your family ever faced a sudden retirement, lost a late layoff, or had to cancel retirement plans, share your story or what you wish you knew earlier down in the comments. Let's help each other break the taboo about retirement challenges. Someone needs to hear your lesson. So what's the outcome of all these historical patterns, market shocks, and policy changes? By the early 2010s and now, approaching 2025, more and more folks aged 65 and up aren't retiring at all. The share of working seniors has doubled since 1980, driven partly by necessity, not just choice. Source: Pew Research 2022. Uber drivers, part-time retail workers, seniors taking odd jobs. This is the new normal for millions struggling to make ends meet, supplementing meager Social Security checks and limited savings. Even for those who did it right and bought a home, the supposed American dream didn't always pan out as hoped. Sure, owning a house can be an asset, but taxes, insurance, repairs, and sky-high property values mean that unless you sell, your house may cost you more in retirement than it saves. To highlight a real-life impact, let's talk about Linda, a composite case taken from several anonymous subscribers. Linda entered her 50s with a small 401k mortgage with 11 years left and minimal pension from a past employer. After being laid off at 56, her plan was derailed. But by downseeing her home, moving to a lower cost of living state, and pivoting to part-time consulting work using her industry contacts, she stopped draining her nest egg, rebuilt her savings to $185,000 by age 65, and now covers nearly 70% of expenses from a combination of reduced withdrawals and continued part-time income. Linda's story isn't unique, but it stands out as a realistic example of how late action and strategic pivots can make a measurable impact. If you're willing to face the new math of retirement. Now let me ask, which part of retirement planning do you find most overwhelming? Investing, health costs, or something entirely different? Drop your answer below. Your struggles help me make future videos targeted to exactly what you need. Now, circling back to the factors that leave so many retiring broke, let's break down the numbers on the most common traps. 1. Social Security shortfalls. The reality is, thanks to inflation, the average Social Security check simply doesn't go as far. Current median payment, about $1,900 per month in 2025, versus required living expenses for a modest retirement often exceeding $3,000 to $4,000 per month in many states. Source: SSA.gov 2025. 2. Housing cost explosion. Even if you paid off your house, property taxes and insurance have jumped in many regions. In high-tax states, annual property taxes on a median-priced home can top $8,000, and homeowners insurance in hurricane-prone areas is up nearly 50% in just 10 years. National Association of Realtors and Insurance Information Institute. 2024. 3. Inflation underestimated. Few retirees in the 1990s or early 2000s predicted that healthcare, food, and energy would rise at double or triple expected rates. In 2025, total out-of-pocket medical costs for a retired couple can exceed $350,000 over their remaining lifetime, according to Fidelity's retirement healthcare cost estimate. 4. Unexpected life events. Divorce rates for those age 50 and up have doubled in the last 30 years and often force households to split assets just when they're needed most, leaving each partner financially exposed at the worst time. A single late-in-life divorce can erase decades of savings growth. Source: Pew Research 2022. 5. The medical costs time bomb. Even for healthy retirees, annual premiums for a 60-something couple easily top $1,100 per month, with $2,500 deductibles common, not to mention co-pays and covered expenses. For those with chronic or unexpected health needs, costs can climb much higher, sometimes wiping out savings altogether. 6. Flat wages and weak financial literacy. Since the dollar left the gold standard in 1971, wages, after adjusting for inflation, have been nearly flat, making it tougher and tougher for ordinary families to get ahead. At the same time, prior generations rarely received any hands-on education on investing, budgeting, or market risks in school or at work. The result: vulnerability to scams, overexposure to market downturns, and costly mistakes. An entire generation was left to figure it out alone. 7 newer debts in retirement. Many boomers trying to help their kids co-signed or took out Parent Plus student loans, saddling themselves with tens of thousands, debt well into their 60s and beyond. In 2023, over $120 billion in outstanding Parent Plus loans were held by borrowers 60 or older. Source: U.S. Department of Education 2023. At this point, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But here's where knowledge becomes power. For everyone watching, especially those under 55, let's transition into an actionable 3-step framework that anyone can implement, no matter your age. Starting balance. And for viewers 55 and up, I'm going to add a bonus step just for you. But first, a quick and critical disclaimer. This video offers general educational information, not individualized financial advice. Always consult a licensed financial advisor and a CPA before making any investment withdrawal or retirement decision. Individual circumstances vary. Past returns don't guarantee future results, and this isn't personalized guidance. Let's get to the practical steps with numbered transitions so you can screenshot or take notes. Framework. The 3 must-do moves to future-proof your retirement. Step 1. Automate and maximize your savings. Right now, start your 401k traditional Roth IRA as soon as possible. According to Vanguard's 20 to 24 report, workers who start investing in a 401k by age 25 and contribute consistently, at least 10%, ideally 15% or more, can see final balances more than triple versus those who delay by a single decade. Why? Compound interest is exponential. The equation: future value equals contribution multiplied by open bracket 1 plus r to the power minus 1 close bracket divided by Maritra, where r equals average annual return and equals years invested. For example, if you contribute $6,000 per year from age 25 to 65, 40 years at 7% average return, you'll end up with roughly $1,280,000. Wait until 35, and you'll have about $6,707,000, a difference of $669,000 just by starting later. Source: Vanguard 2024. Takeaway: every year matters. Automate contributions. Never miss free employer matches, and make it a non-negotiable part of your paycheck. Screenshot this step or write it down. Automation and early action are the foundation. Step 2. Slash the hidden killers. Investment fees and early withdrawals. Fees are the silent killer of retirement wealth. A seemingly tiny 1% annual fee can quietly erase 6 figures over a career. Let's run the math. $300 per month invested over 40 years at 7%, with only 0.05% in fees. Typical for low-cost index funds, grows to about $786,000. Raise the fee to 1%. You end up with only $593,000. That small fee destroyed $193,000 of your future. Source: Department of Labor. A look at 401k plan fees. 2022. Takeaway: always choose low-cost index funds for your 401 core IRA when possible, and compare expense ratios. Never cash out your retirement accounts when switching jobs. Roll them over to an IRA or your new employer's plan. Compounding and eliminate hefty taxes or penalties. If you want to do a quick audit, many providers let you see expense ratios and annual fees directly in your account interface. Step 3. Hedge aggressively against inflation and medical costs. Use realistic projections for your retirement needs. If your annual cost of living now is $50,000, Plan for $75,000 or more in 25 to 30 years, assuming 2 to 3% average annual inflation. When it comes to health costs, budget $350,000 more in total health-related spending over a simple 25-year retirement. Source: Fidelity 2024. Consider inflation-protected investments like Treasury inflation-protected securities or diversified portfolios with a mix of equities and high-quality bonds. Protect your downside with long-term care, insurance, if you can qualify, and plan for Medicare coverage gaps. If you want my full risk audit checklist covering fees, inflation, Social Security, and healthcare risks, grab the link below. Download it free. Bonus step for 55-plus viewers. Run a retirement math fire drill yearly. If you're already 55 or older, run a retirement math audit with your advisor. Every year, lay out your Social Security estimate. You can use your SSA.gov account, your 401k IRA balances, all sources of passive income, expected expenses, and factor in core risks like inflation and medical costs. Make tactical moves. Downsize your lifestyle if needed. Maximize catch-up contributions. In 2025, you can add an extra $7,500 in catch-up contributions to your 401k and explore annuity options carefully if a guaranteed income stream is right for your risk profile. Here's another curiosity loop. I'll walk through a real-life catch-up play in my upcoming video, so subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to see the math for retiring late but still secure enough to outlast inflation. Let's recap with a bold takeaway. Retirement isn't a birthright, it's a strategy. Every step you take or skip today will echo across decades. A final note on housing decisions: never make a move, whether downsizing, refinancing, or reverse mortgaging, without running the full numbers. Taxes, insurance, projected living expenses, HOA fees, and future repair costs. Never assume that a paid-off home alone is your ticket to lifelong security. And don't forget, building skills you can use for remote or part-time income in retirement, especially those that aren't physically demanding, can be a game changer for extending both your savings and your options. As we bring this together, remember, your path to retirement security doesn't depend on the year you were born. It depends on the steps you take, the traps you sidestep, and the clarity of your plan. Want more engagement prompt? If you've ever felt lost about retirement, weigh in below. What's your biggest worry? Investing, health, inflation, or something else? For a deeper dive and full self-assessment, download the Retirement Risk Audit checklist linked below. It's the exact template I use with coaching clients and lets you benchmark your own plan for the biggest risks. And don't miss my upcoming video where I break down the index funds with the strongest long-term records for balancing growth and risk. Hit subscribe so you don't miss out. Let's quickly recap what you've just learned. The idea that boomers are universally wealthy is a myth exposed by hard data. About half have no retirement savings. We broke down the history of Social Security, pensions, saw the rise of the 401k and the challenges of DIY investing, and covered the perfect storm of flat markets, tough job markets, inflation, and rising medical costs. Most importantly, you now have a step-by-step, three-part framework. Start saving early and automatically, slash fees and avoid early withdrawals, and rigorously plan for inflation and health expenses. If you're 55 plus, run an annual math audit. Maximize catch-up contributions, get clear on guaranteed income, and downsize expenses. Immediate next steps. Download my free Retirement Risk Audit checklist. Grab the link below. Audit your 401k fees and contribution. Rate this week and set up an account at SSA.gov to review your Social Security estimate. Over the next 30 to 90 days, build your budget factoring in future inflation. Plan for your life to cost at least 50 to 100% more than today over the next 30 years. For the long term, review your plan with a professional regularly and check back for new videos and research. If you work the framework, you'll see positive progress in as little as 6 months. Higher net savings rate, lower fees, greater retirement clarity. Over years, small changes compound into 6 figures or more. Subscribe to Ray Invests now. Next video dives into the safest index fund, strategies, and how to outperform at expensive mutual funds. Comment with your biggest retirement fear, what advice you wish you'd learned sooner, and join our community. Remember, I'm not a licensed financial advisor. This is general financial education, not individualized advice. Past performance never guarantees future results, and your situation is unique. Always consult a licensed professional before making retirement or investment decisions.